All right, welcome back to Kitchen Table Talk, a Break the Stigma Inc. podcast for real, unfiltered conversations about first responder mental health and wellness happen. I'm Michael Long, firefighter, paramedic, and founder of Break the Stigma Inc. The show is a place for all of us as firefighters, EMTs, police officers, dispatchers, and other medical professionals to pull up a chair, share stories, talk about the parts of the job most of us don't see. Here, we'll laugh, we'll reflect, we'll learn, and we'll remind each other that it's okay to not be okay because mental health is just as vital as physical health, and together we can break the stigma. So grab a cup, take a seat, and join us at the table for this episode of Kitchen Table Talk. And welcome back to our wonderful co-host, Nick Robben.
How are you guys doing? Hope you're doing well. Hope 2026 is treating you well. Did we do it? Did we break the stigma? Maybe. I don't know.
I think we're getting there.
We're getting there.
I've definitely seen some stigma breaking and some culture changes from all around. But had a lot of meetings these last few weeks with just different organizations, and the perception of stigma has changed. It's very much recognized now as an issue versus a stigma where we're just going to keep ignoring it.
Right. Yeah. I guess anytime we're moving the needle, we're breaking the stigma, and the organization isn't called Fix the Stigma. So
Yeah,
um,
I don't think we'll ever fully break it. We all know that getting everybody on the same side of something is nearly impossible, just depending on even things that are obvious. You'll have somebody that'll fight back at some point in time. But I think we're doing a lot of good. We've done episodes this year already, but I kind of think the concept of this episode, as we've discussed, is just how to prepare yourself and get yourself into 2026 for a better, healthier you. But kind of going from that, not to pat ourselves on the back, but we had our 2025 was one of our biggest years with Break the Stigma, and we had over 1,000 first responders that we impacted in some way, between education and conferences and the podcast, referral help, resource directories, and things like that. So I think that speaks volumes on what we're doing here today, even on the podcast, is getting the word out there, changing it, and then hopefully people can take this and make 2026 the beginning of a fulfilling, healthy life.
yeah, for those of you that struggle with winter and darkness, we're there. We're into some longer days. In the area, we're starting to see some springtime weather, which is always good. I think sunshine is huge for those of us who have mental health issues. At least for me, it is. These were always some of my most difficult times. Was the darkness of winter. When I first started in fire and EMS, I started on nights, and I remember I worked three in a row at night, and I'd get up at what was nighttime to get ready for my shift in the dark. Then I'd drive home in the dark. And after 3 days in a row, I remember my mom had called me to tell me something, and I could not figure out why she was up at 5 a.m., which was actually 5 p.m., and what was up and what was down. And yeah, so if you're a night shift worker, we feel you. And I think you have a whole nother set of challenges, especially in the winter. But yeah, the days are getting longer. If you can be outside right now, the easiest win for mental health is getting some sunshine on your skin, and just kind of basking in some warmer temperatures. We had a difficult stretch there for about a month.
Yeah, I'd say so. You could get outside. It was miserable to be outside. No, it's funny, the sunshine thing. So I actually bought, now where the science is on this, it's up in the air. But I bought a daylight lamp alarm clock, so it illuminates at a certain lux capacitor, blah blah blah. But the certain frequencies of light and thing that the sun actually gives outside of the UV rays, but it turns on 20 minutes before my alarm goes off and slowly brightens as if the sun was rising. And then I already have 20 minutes of light exposure by the time the
Yeah.
alarm goes off. Um, Pretty interesting. The science behind it, kind of got into the research of it, and it's the same concept as doing the light in the morning as it is getting rid of the light at night, the blue lights and short wavelength lights. You want them in the morning. And we could break down the whole neurobiology of how the brain, you know, fires off the melatonin and cortisol and all that from the different light but we won't get that far into it.
No, I agree. That sounds like a great idea. I would love to do that. Unfortunately, we have to hang a pretty heavy curtain in our room because my neighbor gets up earlier than us, and to let his dog out, he has I would guess 5 million candle watt spotlight on his backyard.
Pointed directly
So
at your window.
ex directly at the window. So instant daytime if we don't have those curtains closed. So maybe a daytime alarm clock will be in my future. We try to do that with the kids too. Our oldest likes to sleep with an alarm clock, and I don't know what LED setting it's on. Um, Hockey rink, I think, and he points it directly at his face to sleep. And I try to explain to him, dude, there's no way this is healthy. Like, your little tiny kid brain cannot have this much light all night long. So,
Yeah, and that's what's kind of nice about this is the time itself you can dim down to pretty much invisible, and then it all kicks on when it's time to wake up. So you're not exposing yourself to that light while you're sleeping. But I think that's a good topic to roll into the conversation for today, as we went off on the light tangent, is sleep quality and kind of how to help set your sleep up. We've all talked, we've already talked about the light. We talked about the short wavelength thing like that, the blue light glasses and whatnot. But I don't think people realize when your sleep is deprived or terrible, your entire physical and mental body just decline quickly. And we always talk about sleep, and it seems to be the hot button topic right now when it comes to mental health. But I think people don't realize physical and mental health that's affected so drastically by your sleep. But with being on 48s on the fireside, or if you're on nights as an officer, whatever it is, we don't get the luxury of getting to sleep from, 9 to 5 every night and get up fully rested. We get 2 days a week where we might not sleep at all. But setting yourself up at home to get the best night's sleep. And I will say, I actually just had this conversation with somebody this morning about sleep because they were asking about my glasses that I wear. Um, and they said, well, I don't know how to tell if my sleep's getting better. I'm like, not telling you to go buy a smartwatch, but I can honestly say with my watch, when it tells me my sleep scores and then my energy scores, it's almost dead on when I have a bad night's sleep, how I feel the next day.
yeah, I'm a data fanatic, so I am a smartwatch wearer, and I got the one that not only does sleep, which is important, but also my HVR. And I went way down the HVR rabbit hole and kind of learning about that and the things that affect sleep. But from like a non-technology standpoint, the things that you can do, um, clean sheets. I think a lot of people undersell that, but especially if you're in like a stressed out period, you're dumping stress pheromones. This is completely unscientific, but I'm going to go, just follow me here. You're dumping tons of stress pheromones and sweat into your sheets. Everybody sweats when they sleep. So, from that standpoint, clean sheets, you get those pheromones out of your sheets. The other thing is clean sheets sleep a little bit cooler because there's not as much dirt and sweat in there, but also keep your room cooler. I know there's the book out there about making your bed every day. I didn't read the book. I just decided to jump to the point and make my bed every day.
It's sitting right above me. I'm trying to figure out.
But yeah, I mean, most people have heard of that book or that concept, but it is nice after a long day to get into, a clean bed where, everything has its place. And I think for me mentally, like if I'm running around all day and the bed's not made, it's almost like an OCD thing, like something's out of place. So yeah, just, you know, make part of your morning routine, even if you have to get up a little bit earlier, is, making that bed so it's ready for you that night. It's the same concept. I saw a good one the other day about backing your vehicle into places so that when you're ready to take on the next task, you're always moving forward, which it's a little thing, but I kind of thought about it. I'm like, huh, that's pretty smart. Also, if you're in a hurry, you don't have to worry about like backing over a neighbor kid or into somebody's car. You just pull out of the
Yeah,
driveway. So
it's,
again, I think sometimes with mental health, it's the discipline of organizing all the little things that are going to help you throughout the day. Because I think all of us that struggle with mental health kind of have this overstimulation, and we're bouncing around one thing to one thing. I'm doing tile 1 minute, and then I'm shooting a podcast the next minute in Mike's situation today. Um, we bounce all through these activities all throughout the day. And I mean, quite frankly, that's probably why we got into the positions that we're in, whether it's nursing, police, fire, EMS. The number one reason you talk to people, how'd you get into this field? Well, I don't sit still well. We always want a different call or a different patient or something else. We're always moving, 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 and we're neglecting the simple things that can bother us in the background. So, keep a dirty house is another tab you have open, or if you're constantly chasing like this is kind of what's going on with us right now. You're constantly chasing like a car problem. So, the minivan, the kid mover, it always smells like coolant, and then I started losing coolant. So now throughout the day, spending time looking at coolant related issues to minivans. So there's another thing that we're piling on, and that kind of goes into that overstimulation. So to come full circle on a big weave here, when you have all these things going on, it's going to affect your sleep quality. And I think the number one thing that people face is they wake up because of their caveman brain at 3 a.m., 2 or 3 a.m. And that where that comes from is that's when you used to actually check the fire that kept you alive when you were a caveman, and that circadian rhythm's still in there. So you wake up at 3, toss turn. There's a lot of people who get into cycles who already start thinking about their day at that time, and I don't have a fix for that because I do it myself. But
Oh, I'm terrible about that at that 3 a.m. and all of a sudden you start firing off all the things you need to do and you can't
yeah,
go back to sleep.
Yeah, so if that happens sooner, if that happens to you at 1:30 because the dog barks, or a kid wakes you up, or a call wakes you up, and now you have to spin back down, and you're not tired from the day like you were when you went to bed, you got a whole another host of problems with you ruining your sleep. So what kind of check boxes can you make for when you go to bed? Like, even if it's a list next to your bed, yeah, that's taken care of, that's taken care of, or get to that first thing in the morning so that you're not trying to organize thoughts in the middle of the night.
No, I agree. I think you nailed it there with a lot of it, and it kind of stems into one of my thought processes I already have going, but I want to circle back to the clean sheets, and we go for full circle over and over again. No, it's funny you say that because even not even the clean sheets part of it, but for me, my wife tells me all the time I sleep like a child, so I roll, I throw, my bed is destroyed by the time I get up in the morning. When I'm home, I make the bed before I leave. Generally because it's easy because my wife leaves before me and she makes her side, then I just make mine. But at work, it's hilarious because we sleep on single beds, and there you can tuck the sheets as best you can. But I wake up in the morning and there's a pillow across the room, my blankets on the ground, my sheets in a ball. But if I just leave it like that and then go try to lay down that night, it's never I can't ever get comfortable. Like I'm sitting there trying to fiddle it. I have to remake my bed before I go to bed. Like
Yeah.
from beginning to end, just remake it so like when I lay down, everything's smooth, clean, nothing's like out of place. Probably part of, like you said, the OCD tendencies of like something's touching my foot that shouldn't be touching my foot.
Sure.
There's a wrinkle in the back of my calf that I need to get rid of. Um, but that right there, I mean, that's something that I've made like almost a staple in my going to bed at work routine is remaking my bed. And I will tell you, on the nights where I'm exhausted or we've been running and it's midnight or 1 o'clock and I'm just wanting to roll into bed, I've done it and not remade my bed and had the worst night of sleep possible just because you broke that routine. But
Yeah, it's
go ahead.
it's it's great to see. I think when you're more in tune with your mental health, and you realize that you have some changes that need to be made, those are the little things that you have to work out. It's almost like learning a sport for the first time. You'll just start learning these little tricks that make you a better athlete. So when it comes to mental health, what little tricks are you learning that makes you better at tackling your mental health? I think it's crazy too. Like, it seems to, at least for me, and maybe it's, having a busy family, but it seems like mental health becomes a much bigger challenge when you're older. And maybe it's from the things you didn't address when you were younger, and you didn't learn those tricks, and you didn't have like training wheels or some way to handle this kind of stuff. But that's something Mike and I we preach back to younger generations of first responders when we go teach at academies. Figure this stuff out now so that you're not trying to figure out why you're completely fried at the end of the day at 40, because you're already dealing with all the things that are going to stress you out, and you have no skills.
Yeah, that's actually it's funny because they that's I'm redoing my 2026 presentations from what we did in 2025. It's very similar to what I was doing in 2025, but one of the concepts I've now including in I have two conferences in March and then another one in July, and so I'm reworking all of my presentations for that. And the basis of it, outside of the normal stuff I talk about, is the stigma and the culture and the environment changes that we can make to better ourselves for the future, but also a concept I got out of a couple different books and another podcast I listened to, and I can't remember which one it was, or else I'd give them credit for the concept. But um, essentially, it's like preparing your. It's just like we do for work. We train, we prepare ourselves, we get everything ready for when shit hits the fan. But when it comes to our mental health, we do nothing until we start to decline, and then we try to figure it out on the fly. Why are we not preparing ourselves on the minor skills, the minor tools, the simple things that we can do throughout our young lives, our young adult lives, where we have those skills. We may never need them until we're in our 30s and 40s, but when shit hits the fan in your 30s and 40s, you're not learning something new. You're just rehashing a skill that you've already learned. Um, and it's a concept that it's so simple, and I feel like that's the crazy part about mental health. The more and more I get into this and do more with the mental health presentations and education, do more studying. Obviously, I'm getting my master's right now in psychology, so that's opened my eyes to some concepts and things I didn't really think about. But nothing about mental health is complicated. Like, I don't understand why we make it such a complicated topic. All of the fixes outside of, like, let me rephrase this from being the simplest, it's not complicated. It gets complicated if you don't address
Mhm.
it when it's not complicated. When I talk about in my presentations, I talk about treating mental health as any other medical disease of, stage one, stage two, stage three, stage four. If you get diagnosed with, stage one cancer, do you wait until it's stage four to go find treatment or figure out what to do next? Or do you do everything possible at stage one where it's simple, minor intervention, very mild treatment? Or do you wait till stage four where it's drastic intervention, major medical intervention, and there's the likelihood of not curing your issues? That's what I'm saying. When we keep it on that frame of mind of addressing it at stage one, even stage two, it's really not that complicated. It's as simple as preparing yourself for those moments in time. And we're all really bad at it because life is hectic and we all live in a fast paced world of we got to do this at home. Like you're just talking about, I literally, as before we started this, texting you saying, "Hey, you want to push back a half hour because I'm still putting tile up and I haven't eaten lunch and it's 1 o'clock." And you know, we don't we have plans in our day and we try to fill every single minute we can in between, and it's not healthy. And I'm guilty of it as worse as the next person. Even though I sit here and preach about it.
Yeah, I think this is a really good segue, and something I had to look into my own life. I guess we'll kind of title it "How Much Is Too Much." So, as you know, generally as the personality types of first responders go, we have a hard time, one, accepting help or getting help. We know that. We cover that in like 7 episodes, probably.
Yeah, I think every
Yeah,
one.
so that one's known. But two, we have a hard time saying no to giving someone else help or helping with the next thing. And so you really need to look at if you're you're feeling overstimulated or spun up, you're losing sleep, just that general anxiety about things going on, you really need to stop and kind of check in of like, well, how many things am I doing? Am I coaching 3 baseball teams? Yes. Okay, that's a lot. Uh, then you have, the stresses of work, as a union rep where we work, as an officer on a crew, as just a father, as someone who is, trying to be better and following in my faith. So you have all these things going on. You're going to have to stop and look at, okay, what has to go? Or like, when do I say no and I can't take more stuff on? We're really good at taking on projects, as part of the ADHD and ADD spectrum is we get free dopamine from starting a new project. And so when people ask us, can you fix this or can you help with this? We always jump right in. But the problem is there's no end point to those projects. Sometimes it's a simple fix, but there's no like end to it. And then halfway through a project, as our minds work, the dopamine is gone and we're stuck in something, helping with something that we don't really care about or want to be a part of. But we're also not very good at quitting.
Yeah.
We're good at
Well,
procrastinating, but we're
yeah.
not good at being like, hey, this isn't working out. I gotta go, or I can't do this anymore.
Yeah.
I
Well,
bet you, yeah, most of us were actually probably terrible at breaking up with somebody in a relationship because we're like, well, this seems it's a pretty big decision, and I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings, so
yeah.
I'll just
Well,
let this get as bad as possible, and hopefully they'll shoo me to the curb.
yeah. Well, I mean, it's kind of that failure concept. I think we're all terrible at of like, I can still fix this. I can still fix this. I don't want to fail if I, and it's funny the relationship side, and I won't, probably not a good podcast topic, but not for me and my wife, previous relationships. But it was one of those things I can wholeheartedly relate, whereas you could see things falling apart, but you don't want to give up because you're invested, and we are terrible at taking away our investment and just continuing to say yes, like, oh yeah, we'll keep doing this until it completely destroys us and we have no other choice but to leave. Not just really any topic of giving your time to something. And I think it's, as you were saying, that it brought up an analogy that we've used in the past when it comes to your mental health about the bucket or the jar, filling it with water or marble, whatever your analogy is. And we talk about it with the mental health stuff, oh, you have this trauma, this stress, this, that, this. It's the same thing with your day to day life. Your jar is only so big. You can only fill your day with so much, and eventually it overflows. We're all really good at filling our jar to the rim and then just trying to shove some more marbles in there.
Yeah, it probably would have been better at the beginning of the year to look at what marbles we can take out of the jar, but tomorrow is the start of Lent, if in a lot of Catholic faiths, and part of the big portion of Lent is giving something up or fasting in a lot of ways. So unreligiously, how can we tie that to mental health? Okay, for the next 40 days, what are you willing to give up? What are you willing to fast from that's driving you crazy right now? And even if it is like a big project or something that you have to be a part of, can you take a 30 or 40-day pause on that? Or can you just step away and just say, hey, I need some time. And, what things can you limit within your life that are causing you to have worse mental health? What can you step back from? I think is kind of the question that we have to ask ourselves, going into springtime, a little spring cleaning, if you will.
Yeah. No, and I think it's even on that concept of stepping away or, having all of these objectives or um, different tasks that need to be completed. It might not even, like, I had to do a complete reevaluation of my life recently. Not for any particular reason other than I realized I was burning myself out from both ends. The candle was pretty much gone. Um, but I realized that a lot of my investment in the charity organization, in my family, in my job, I was investing 100% in all of it. And I realized by stepping back and looking, doing that audit of my own life, well, even organizational stuff. It I don't have to set this meeting up this week. Can it wait 2 weeks,
Yeah.
3 weeks when I actually have a day to fill it? Because I was terrible at, like, when something interesting came up or a meeting or something was on the books. I didn't want to let it go because I thought people would lose interest. I thought, this would be a great thing, and if we don't talk about it tomorrow, you won't care anymore. But I realized that people, if they've reached out and want to have a conversation or set up a meeting, if they wait 3 weeks, they still want to have the meeting. So that was
Yeah.
just an audit in my own life, was realizing that not everything has to be done in the next 24 hours or 48 or week or 2 weeks. I can put things off. Um, it was crazy. I was in therapy the other day and I was telling my therapist all this, and it was very well worded, and telling her about all these revelations I had. And she's like, "We've been seeing each other for over a year, and this is the first time you've left my office, and I'm not worried about you." And it was,
You did it. You won therapy,
yeah,
Michael.
I feel like I did, for the time being. There's always
Well, there's the next game too.
But it was as simple as not giving anything up as much as it was giving up the ambition to finish everything. Where are your priorities at? Where are the important things at? Is it your career? I would imagine most of us, especially first responder wise, take our career pretty serious. But do you have to pick up that overtime day? Do you have to go take that class? Do you have to invest in shop leadership um, every day? In your case, it seems to be that it's every day, but
There's just a lot going on right now.
yeah, but that's the thing, and I feel like life comes in waves too, where certain aspects of our life, because we all have investments in different aspects, in one for certain wave of life will all of a sudden drain you, unlike it ever has. I mean, I've been in the case where work was my burnout, where
Mm-hmm.
home was my burnout, because you got young kids and a wife, and you're trying to keep the house going and everything else, and then you go back to like the charity organization. This is something obviously I'm super passionate about, and we have grown so substantially over the last couple of years that I was speeding up so fast with the organization that I was getting ahead of myself. I was working on projects and tasks that weren't pertinent to the here and now because of the growth we had. And I didn't want that growth to stop, but it was destroying me. So I had to kind of audit that, of like, okay, how am I going to still, and the concept I preach to everyone in all of my education series and presentations is, if you can't take care of yourself, how are you going to take care of anyone else? Whether it
Yeah.
be patients, your family, whatever it is. And I wasn't taking care of myself. But it took me stepping back and hitting a burnout stage to finally realize that. So how do we pertain that to the topic of, don't go to burnout before you do your audit?
Well, I think the thing that kept running through my mind as you kind of explained the situation that you were in there is, unfortunately, another checklist. But like you said, if you phrase it as an audit, I like that word a lot. So if we phrase the struggles we're dealing with as an audit, we're going to sit back unemotionally and look at what's in front of us, what's the work to be done. And then, you almost want to build three categories out. So days, weeks, months. I have days to complete this thing. Like you would like to shower again, so you're probably going to want to tile as fast as you can.
Yeah.
So that's like a days thing. What projects do you have that I got a couple weeks? Maybe this isn't a week, because if you look at category one, which is days, if it's full, then that's what you're doing for those days. If you look at category two and it's weeks and it's kind of empty, which one of those days can you move into weeks? And then if days is full and weeks is filling up because you're running a charity and you're working and you're running a family and you're doing all these things, okay, what goes down to months? So that way you can kind of visualize, your timeline. I think the days one, the dumbest thing that I've dealt with lately is there was one more document I needed to turn in for taxes, and like I just could not bring myself to get that done. And I did it this morning, and I think it took 5 minutes to print. And then I went to the place, and that was probably 15 minutes, 10 of which I pet their dog while they went through the paperwork, and then it was done. And I think that's another thing that we get into is like we get so close to finishing a project, and then for some reason we just kind of let it idle there. Like just do the thing you were going to do. Like check it off the checklist.
Well, I think talking about taxes, it's funny because I started our taxes before we even got all our W-2s back. And like you're gung ho, and just like we talked about the mentality, you're gung ho to get it done. And then you have that slight pause when you're waiting on a document to turn in and you lose all interest in what you're doing. But it's still on your list of tasks to do. So it's still a stressor. But now you have a week to build up more tasks before that one is prevalent again. And then it comes in and you're like, oh shit, I got to get this done now.
Right.
And just for perspective, the shower, it was supposed to be a day project. Going on 2.5 weeks at this point.
Right.
So, and that's because I filled all of my days in between that I haven't had time to finish my day projects.
Yeah. Well, when you write your categories down, highlight that shower one.
Yeah, no, that's on my list for this 4 day. I got a lot of things going on this 4 day, but I have a few hours carved out every day to get this done.
Yeah. I'm trying to think. I don't know. That's the funny thing about mental health is it's okay to say I don't know, and everybody's got to figure it out, for themselves. And whether it's to-do lists or time lists or alarms on your phone, again, coming back to these are simple things that you could do. There's got to be an app out there for all these things.
Yeah,
There is. Um, Otherwise, I'd make it now. When we look into that, the Breaking the Stigma prioritization app. But again, it's coming back to clean clothes, clean sheets, make your bed, make a list. And all of that needs to be performed in that audit. So, I think if you're starting to spiral or, you can tell when your mental health's off, perform that audit. Write some stuff down. I'm terrible about writing stuff down, but I'm better after I do it.
yeah. I used to carry a little notebook around with me where every time something came up, I wrote it down. That way, I could forget about it and then go back and worry about it later. My problem is I have been forgetting to carry the book around with me to write things down. Um, but and I think that audit and everything, and I think something that we're all terrible at doing, whether you're a first responder or not. And some people are probably good at it. I am not. I would imagine most people aren't. Is we prioritize our day, we have all these audits, we figure out what we need to get done, and the one thing we leave out of our schedule every day is a time to just relax and reset. Uh, I mean, I go pretty much every day from the time I roll out of bed till the time I roll into bed. And that was actually a challenge my therapist gave me about probably 2 months ago. She goes, "I'm going to challenge you, and I normally don't tell people to do this in therapy." She goes, "I'm going to challenge you to be lazy." She goes, "I want you to be lazy." She goes, "And I'm not going to tell you to." She's like, "I know I'm never going to get like a whole week out of you, or a day, even that." So she's like, "I want you to sit down and watch a movie,
Ooh,
the whole
no
thing."
thanks.
And it took me probably 3 weeks to finally sit down and watch a movie from beginning to end. Every movie I've watched in probably the past year has been in segments. I watch like the first hour, and then I watch 30 minutes of it like 4 days later, and then I finish it, 2 weeks later. Um, but how simple would it be to just, and I'm not saying you got to watch a movie, take 30 minutes out of your day to read a book, take 30 minutes out of your day to just sit and stare out the window, to go sit outside in the sun. Uh,
Yep.
you don't do anything that requires mental capacity or physical capacity in the sense of, I would be fine with, going for a walk for a half hour. I think that kind of kills two birds with one stone on that one, getting that physical activity in. And then we've had the walk conversation multiple times across the podcast, but
I'm still walking, still getting my miles in.
I have been lacking on physical fitness lately. And physically being physically active all day, just not in the sense of working out. But
Meaningful. Yeah.
yeah, you lift tile all day long for 8 hours.
Yeah.
It's physical.
Well, I think that goes back to, sometimes we're too hard on ourselves again when it comes to our lists. If fitness is a priority, you probably have some amount of fitness you want to achieve for the day. And sometimes just going for a walk is okay.
Yeah. Well,
And
good.
that's just, well, I was gonna say that's what it is. I had a good 40-year-old reminder. I don't know what I did to my back. I think it was relative to a kettlebell workout, but it slowed me down quite a bit. And it was a good reminder that sometimes just going for a walk is fitness. Um, so kind of go easy on yourself.
Yeah. Well, and I think we talked about it in, what was it, 2 episodes ago, where we talked about the goals, is setting those goals, whether it be fitness goals or personal goals or audit goals, whatever it is. And it's kind of caveating off of that conversation is set obtainable, realistic goals for what your plan is for 2026, whether it be the mental audits, the daily audits, the, you know, your job tasks, your daily life task is, and it's, and what I think we discussed it in this forum too, and I'll just rehash it a little bit, is when you set your goal to lose 20 pounds, that's not a goal. That's an objective. A goal, the way I look at it is, I want to lose 20 pounds. Like when I started working out again, when I was getting back into it, was not necessarily because I wanted to lose weight. Now I need to lose weight, but it wasn't because I want to lose weight. It was because my girls were mimicking me. When they'd get up off the ground, they would groan because I groaned every time I moved because I was getting, I wasn't moving well. I was gaining weight. I was not working out. My joints weren't the way they used to be. And that was the goal, was to be able to essentially outdo my kids, until I can no longer do it anymore. But it's same with your mental health. Is if you're struggling in any way, whether it's your mental health or a substance issue or whatever it is, it's not about, I'm gonna fix I'm in crisis and I'm gonna fix it tonight and it's gonna be great. I got 30 days to make myself a better person. And again, one of the things I always preach is, you didn't screw yourself up overnight. It's not going to be an overnight fix. And your goal shouldn't be, I want to not have mental health problems, or I don't want to drink, or I don't want to use substances. It should be, what is the reason? What your goal is, the reason for doing that. I want to be healthier. I want to be more present at home. I want to be a more loving father, a more loving husband. I want to be a better fireman. I want to be a better paramedic. Whatever that is your goal. Losing 20 pounds is just an objective. Staying fit is an objective. Being mentally healthy is an objective, in the sense of, the goal of that objective is to better yourself for yourself and everyone around you. Um, and I'm ranting, and my brain's going into the next conversation that I wanted to go into, based off of that one. So if you have anything to enlighten on that one, go ahead.
No, I agree with everything that you said, and I think there's sometimes we do have to understand the difference between goals and objectives, and there's no finish line for being, a good parent. There's no finish line for being a good spouse. You're not going to look one day and be like, I did it. I'm a good spouse. I'm a good parent. And I think a lot of ways you have to look for how that is reflected upon you by others. So the way I look at it is, and I've never been a parent before, and now I'm the parent of, 4 kids. So I'm learning as we go too. When the school sends home notes that your kids are kind and friendly and they clean up the classroom or they get awards at school, that is telling you you're doing something right. When other people ask you, how you deal with things in marriage, or, other people compliment your marriage or your relationship, um, that is telling you that you are on that path. Same thing with, when you're at work and, you're exceeding expectations that were set for you, or you're leading, by example, or, you're becoming an informal leader in whatever it is you're doing, whether it's, the nursing unit, your police department, when you're pulling that culture up, those, those compliments and rewards that you receive from that, those are also, you've met your goal. But as you pull all those other things up around you, it's going to be, key to your mental health, because everything is getting better. But there's just not a very good, definite, closed feedback loop on goals like that, you've accomplished them. You have to look deeper and look other places to see if you're getting that feedback from the outside world that you're doing that correctly.
Oh yeah, and it's indirect feedback. It's not you're not winning a medal for being the world's greatest father. I'm sure we
You
all.
didn't get that one yet?
I haven't got the coffee cup yet that says world's greatest father yet.
Oh, it's
But
usually a good sign.
but it's those indirect, non pats on the back and awards of, like you said, it's when you're, and I've seen that, and as you say it, it makes me realize those things that I've missed. When the girls' daycare teacher texts us and she's like, "Oh, your girls were so great today. They helped clean up the room. They're so polite. They're always willing to help. They, help the other kids do this." And it's like you said, like, oh, that's pretty cool. Like they're learning on their own, but like I'm guiding them. I accomplish that by helping them meet those societal standards, or just being a good person, which I preach of a lot. And I think that's something that we can pass on. And if we're not if we're not noticing those, and we're always trying to have these objectives, you know, we tend to fray off of what the objective was. My goal is to be a good father. Well, it's not going to be 100% every day. Like, it's not going to be perfect. I can get better every day. But once I get the, Nobel Prize for world's greatest dad, um, now I just set a standard. So somebody else is going to beat me. So I might as well keep trying. It's a
Yeah.
journey, just like recovery with mental health. It's a journey. It's a lifelong journey. Um, and it's not a straight path by any means. And neither is a profession like ours, a profession in general, being a father, being a husband or a spouse. There's no straight path of perfection, and we tend to, I think, lean towards these straight, easy paths. If I keep doing X, Y, Z, A, B, and C will happen. Well, what happens when M gets thrown in there, and L, and
Yeah.
Z falls apart, so C disappears. How do we rebuild from there?
That's another excellent point about whether it's recovery or getting out of mental health crisis. I don't think you got a trophy after that, did you?
No, I got a challenge coin from the Center of Excellence. That was kind of like a trophy.
Yeah,
My
but now you have to maintain what got you that challenge coin. So I think that's something else to consider is you may have a great victory over substance abuse, and then you get to start counting your days and years sober, or you may get out of mental health crisis where you're like, hey, I don't feel like ending my own life anymore. No one's waiting at that finish line with a medal because the finish line is always moving. It's always ahead of you. And it's a very difficult race to run because I feel like you can move backwards in it very easily.
Mhm.
In both those scenarios, it would couple two things start to pile on, and I can see, falling back into those patterns, into that comfort, or just into those ideas. And I think that's the scary part. And just knowing that there's no one reward at the end. You're living the reward, by avoiding those substances or by wanting to live, wanting to be here.
Yeah. No, and I think that's the on the audit topic too, is even on your own mental health, is having that intrinsic or internal audit of how you're feeling, what emotions you're feeling, how you're reacting to situations. It's kind of something I do to keep myself in check. I'm going on, April will be 3 years of sobriety, and right around May will be 3 years since I came back from Maryland. And I still have days that are struggle. I feel like when I came back from Maryland, I won the race. I was getting a good place. I got my family back. I got my job back. Like, I was, everything fell into place. I started a charity. I started helping other people. I'm like, what? There you go. There's my reward. There's my pats on the backs and look at me and great. And then I do my internal audit like I did recently, and I'm like, I'm burning out. I'm falling apart. I'm not taking care of myself. But I have all of these things to show all the great things I did by addressing my mental health. That should be enough, but it's not. It is a constant, and it's kind of a scary concept to tell people that are kind of at the beginning of that journey, is like, hey, when you think you've finished the race, guess what? There's 6 more laps. And
Yeah.
it's a concept that I always like to. It's not a solo race; it's a team race. you're never in it alone, and you're never, a lot of the challenging, you still have to move your feet one in front of the other on your own. Nobody's going to pick your feet up and move you for you. Um, but there's always somebody there motivating you or guiding you or giving you advice of how to finish the race or how to keep going in the race. Um, and we like to use metaphors. And I think I honestly, this one's just popping in my head. I don't know if it's ever been used before, and it's been great, but um, it it kind of reminds me, and not to circle too far off the topic, but it's kind of on topic as we're sitting here talking. I wrote one of my challenges when I was in Maryland was to write a story about myself and how I feel, kind of like a reflection story, but it was supposed to be like a fictional story. And it kind of was on the same concept that, I always used to tell people when I was going through crisis that I was down the deepest, darkest hole. And every time I started to climb out, somebody pushed me back in and then threw me a shovel. And I realized, I always make the joke that I realized it was me at the top of the ladder kicking it over, making similar mistakes, doing new mistakes, not addressing issues. But one of the things that I wrote in Maryland that was kind of like an eye opener to me, just writing it down as I was just putting thoughts on paper in no particular way, was it was like I was the concept of the story. It was me in a boxing ring, and I was fighting myself. I was fighting my demons. I was fighting all of the things that were keeping me down, and I was getting my ass kicked and was losing terribly. And I know you said at one point in time that might have been a good fix for me. In my
Yeah.
story, it didn't work though. But it started breaking away from the losing the fight. And I think it got really imaginary at some point where I was, the imagery of me laying on the ground, beat, bloody, done, and somebody reached into the ring and helped me get back up. And then another hand came in. And then I looked up and there was just a crowd of people in my corner
Yeah.
yelling at me, get up, keep going, keep going. Here's my hand, take my hand. And, I slowly got up and I slowly got up and, it was still a struggle. And then towards the end, I seen a hand reach into the ring and literally grab me and yank me up and say, get back in there. And when I looked up, it was myself. It was the version of myself I wanted to be saying, you can do it. Go, get in there. Which in the end, you win the fight, blah, blah, blah. But, you finish the round, you finish the fight. But guess what? There's always another opponent. There's always
Well,
another
that may have
round to
just
go.
been one round.
Yeah, exactly. So
I
but
think another takeaway from that story that I got right when you ended it before you started making my eyes sweat uh was all right, let's talk about your corner. Who's in your corner? Are you in your own corner? And in your story, that was one of the key pieces to you getting back up was being in your own corner and being that person that you want to be to help you. Who else is in your corner? I mean, these are just kind of blanket questions. Who do you have in your corner? If you're struggling with a mental health issue, who do you have in your corner? Are those the right people in your corner? If you could pick uh, someone else to put in your corner, whether close or far, or internet celebrity, what have you, who else would you put in your corner? The other thing is, whose corner are you in? So who do you know that has put you in their corner, and how are you cheering that person on? So when we talk about, the 2026 goals, I want to be a good parent, a good father. All right, well, now you're in somebody else's corner. Tell them that. When we talk about that indirect feedback, you know, in a lot of ways, that's the key part of mentorship, is mentoring those around you to let them know that they're doing good. That you're cheering them on, you're in their corner. I think that's something that we've lost as a society, um, and we need to get back to. So, getting into people's corners and complimenting them, even if they are, a stranger or somebody you haven't seen in a long time, just shoot them a compliment. And I think it'll come back tenfold. But that's an excellent mental health topic of who's in your corner and are you in your own corner?
and I think that again we circle back to the topic of auditing is when you look in your corner, and I love that you said who's in your corner that shouldn't be there or that you don't want there. Because I will, I can look back and see people that were, trying to help or that were, lifelong friends and blah, 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 that, were almost instigators to the behavior. Um, and then once I really narrowed down, who was in my corner, it was easy to find the ones. And the crazy part, when you start to look in your corner, the people that are going to be in your corner, you might not even know who it is. You might not have ever met them before. You may never even have, you might know them and not even consume that they even cared about you. And then you get beat down in your fight and you look up and here's this person that you would have never expected standing there trying to help you up. And that itself is a great feeling. And it just remind people that just because, you don't feel like anybody's in your corner, you'd be surprised how many people are willing to help you stand back up, or how many people actually care. And if you look in your corner and no one's there, I mean, that's a challenge in itself. It's figuring out who's supposed to be there, who's the important ones to be there, and then also, like you said, putting yourself there. And it's that version of yourself that we all strive to be and thrive to be. Is I don't think there's anyone in this world, again, when we talk about medals and awards, you know, there's no award out there that says, "Oh, you are the perfect version of yourself. You can stop living life. You've nailed it. You've done it. You've accomplished being the perfect version of yourself." It's just like the concept in the fire service where people say the fireman that knows everything is the most dangerous one, and just needs to retire because it's an ever changing field. Well, guess what? Life is ever changing. There's always new challenges. There's always new parts of life that you've never dealt with, and it's always learning and it's always bettering yourself. So that version of yourself, even for now, the version of myself now that I would have seen 3 years ago is not what I pictured today, but I still consider this a very good version of myself, and it continues to grow and get better and have its challenges. Um,
It's crazy to think what you went through and where you're at 3 years later. In the grand scheme of things, that's an incredibly short timeline to accomplish in a lot of ways, what you have in the way that you have, getting your family back, getting your life back, starting a foundation to help others, all in 3 years from when you were arguably at your worst. Those are your words, not mine.
no, I would say
Uh,
it was 100%, hopefully the worst
yeah,
ever.
I can't do it again. I don't know what we're gonna do with you next time.
Yeah, no, I don't think there's a lot of people that can't do it again, including myself. That is the one driving force that keeps me on my own track.
Yeah, I mean that's a great accomplishment, in itself. And I think in a lot of ways it couldn't have come at a better time. Um, just societally, just everything that's going on, everything outside of us, all these outside influences are creating tremendous mental health challenges.
Yeah, no, and I always tell people too, like when they look back and they're always like, "Oh man, that sounds terrible. Your story was so horrible. I can't believe you went through that." And it's like I could look back and dwell on the fact that I let myself get that far or that things were that far. And I'm sure there's plenty of people that are skating that line that are like, "Man, there's no coming back from this. This is who I am." But when I look back at it, I don't look at it. It was a terrible situation. It was something I did to myself essentially, and it was a very dark point in my life, but it led to all of this. And it's that silver lining concept in that that wonderful word we use a lot of recently in the past is, the gratitude. If I wasn't
Hmm.
grateful for being able to sit here today and have this conversation and look back at all the accomplishments I've had in those 3 years, um, I would just look back at my story and say, well, that's who I am. Like that, I'm going to live by that. Like, no, that was something in your life that formed the new version of yourself that led you to the path to the new version of yourself. And I will forever be grateful for all of those hands that reached and helped me, all of those resources that got me to where I'm at. And then 3 years later, still all those people that are guiding my way and keeping me on track, including that version of myself I still strive to be.
Yeah, not at all where I thought this was going to go, but it's pretty, pretty powerful stuff. And if you guys, out there in podcast world don't know Mike and I, the reason we started this podcast is because the conversations that we have in front of you like this are things that we would talk about on the phone. And we did it for after Mike got back, we started doing it in the weight room, and then we continue to do it on the phone until now. And so these are the kind of things that we wanted to get out there and share with you. So I know uh, sometimes we don't flow as well as we should, but we're trying to show you the process about how we talk about things, how we think about things, how we come to realizations. For first responder mental health. And it's through just talking these things out. And that's what we want to encourage with all of you is, find that person that you can spend some time talking to. I mean,
you beat me to, I wanted to
gotcha. I think that's the biggest part of breaking the stigma is our communication with others about things that challenge us, about things that bother us, about things that, we're comfortable telling someone else. There's for sure conversations Mike and I had that I wouldn't have with my spouse, um, you know, just because of how well Mike and I know each other and how much we count on each other. Um, and so that's that person that you have to be able to find.
Yeah. I was going to say, you beat me to it, finding your person. I was going to say, find your Nick Robben. Find your
Oh,
person you can call on the phone that, can have those deep conversations, the ones that we're trying to instill in everyone that it's okay to have them. I feel 100% better. Even if I call you to complain about everything going on and we get into this big mental health topic, that's therapy for me. That's the ability to just voice it to somebody that whether you give me, you're really good at not giving me the answer, but you're really good at being the listening ear and the advisor for, hey, I've been there, or, here's what I think, but, I don't have the answers. Nobody's got the answers to your problems, but having someone to confide in with your problems, even if it's one person or a group of people, um, that's why I love groups because, sitting around with 20 other people and all of a sudden you tell a story and 18 of them stand up and say, I've done that.
right.
It brings that isolation away from you. It brings that I'm in this by myself. It adds 18 people to your corner,
Mhm.
and it's building that corner up. Um, yeah, this was not, and that's what I love about this podcast. Whether people can keep up with our conversations and our random turnoffs, the fact we don't script. This is an hour of we just say hi, and the first thing that's brought up just leads to the next. But this is
Yeah, Mike even asked me when we started, he goes, "Do you have all your talking points lined up?" And I said, "Yeah, I didn't."
yeah. Yeah, they're all like you said, they're all stored up in your brain. They're all things, and I had stuff written down that I was going to talk about, and I don't think we touched. I mean, we touched them all in some concept of throughout the entire process, but it wasn't like we said, "Oh, we're going to talk about X, Y, Z today," and here's the bullet points. We go all over the place, but I think that's the point. Is there's no black and white. There's no, clear cut conversation, no clear cut answer to any of these challenges or any of these issues with your mental health. Is it's just about getting it out and having the conversations and figuring it out and using other people to help you figure it out and using those people that have figured it out, see what worked for them. It might have worked for you. It might not. I learned a lot of things that didn't work for me. I learned a lot of things that didn't. Um, it yeah, I love these conversations. That's why I'm glad, like you said, we used to do this on the phone and just the information in itself, whether people listening find it pertinent or helpful, I hope they do, but hopefully they look back and say, hey, I've got that person. I'm gonna call them. I'm gonna have that
Right.
conversation. So no, I've been writing notes as we go too, and I think we've hit most of them. The only which we're at, our hour now, so I don't want to jump into a new topic, but the main one is, I said it, and I think it's something you've brought up multiple times, and we've talked about it off camera multiple times. Is that concept of gratitude? I think we find so much negative in our lives that we forget to look at all the great little things that get us through our day. We don't wake up in the morning and be the most proactive, finish all these tasks, finish all the objectives, fill our schedules for no reason. We have those reasons to do it, but we forget what those reasons are. We forget to be grateful for those things. I want to be the best father. Well, why do I want to be the best father? Because I have these two little heathens that run around that I love to death, and I'm grateful to death that I get to be their father. But I forget about that, and I think we all do. Finding those things, you got my eyes sweating, and I'm talking.
Emotional today.
Yeah, it's this new. We don't have time, but it's the new shockwave therapy I'm doing in my brain. Um,
I saw a post the other day. It was funny to me, and I kind of connected all the dots, but it was a picture of a sunset over a local river here, and as a father talking about gratitude, and he was just grateful to be driving his kids to their different sports, and he saw a beautiful sunset and wanted to show some gratitude. And I think what was funny to me, but it proves the point, is I knew where the picture was taken, and right behind where that sunset was is a mega landfill. And that stretch of river, I don't even think you should swim in. Uh, and so, here we have this beautiful image and someone taking time to show gratitude. And even with this mountain of trash next to it and a toxic sludge river, was this beautiful thing. And he was taking that time to show that gratitude. So it kind of reminds us that even though the sunset is behind a landfill, and maybe that landfill's your mental health problems, take the time to realize, the good around you.
yeah, no, I love it. That's I think a good way to segue into our ending here. Um, I honestly, I if we usually I've been doing the give your advice at the end of the episode, but I will take that as your advice because that's a great one. Um, but if you have another one you'd like to share,
No, I mean, I think the point of this episode that we had never planned on was looking at your corner. So one would be a mental health audit of how things are going, days, weeks, months. And then two, who's in your corner helping you and is the best version of yourself in that corner. And so in that audit, you need to include what the best version of yourself looks like so that you can, imagine them in your corner.
yeah, no, I love that being the find the what the best version of you, and always remember that there's this is it's not a sprint, it's a marathon, and it's an ever going marathon. But knowing who's in your like you said, knowing who's in your corner, and knowing that you're gonna fall, you're gonna trip, you might make a wrong turn, but eventually there's those people in your corner are gonna guide you back to your path, and you'll get there, and you'll be that best version of yourself. It just takes the little things. It's all about those little things, those little nuances, the skills, the tricks, the ways to take care of yourself. Um, just take care of yourself. Figure out who's in your corner and keep working. There's always a better version. You can only get better. So, on that, I appreciate everyone that was listening today. And if you have any suggestions on topics, guests, if you want to join us, if you have questions, anything at all, feel free to reach out to us at breakthestigmainc@gmail.com. Website is www.breakthestigmainc.com. And you can reach us at any of our socials. Break the Stigma Inc. is our handle on all socials. We appreciate any feedback or advice for how to keep going with these and how to make them better, or things that could have been worse. And as always, put your cup in the dishwasher and push in your chair. And just remember, do the little things, be grateful, and enjoy the rest of your day.